Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a pivot table without using the pivot table feature or just creating a crosstab report. I got this idea from Mr. Excel and I thought it was really cool, so I wanted to kind of try this out and see how it works. For this to work, you're going to need to have Office 365, the subscription, because it's going to use two of the dynamic array functions, unique and sort. Now these two dynamic array functions, sort and unique, are pretty cool, but I'm going to cover the unique function in a little bit more detail later on because it's got some things in there that are pretty cool. The sort function basically lets you sort an array on alphabetical order. So you can probably look up in Microsoft website on how to do that. But let's get into how to create a pivot table or a crosstab without using the pivot table feature. So if you're familiar with the pivot table, you know you can just go in here and go to Insert, go to Pivot Table, and click OK, and you've got, let's just say I just put the make here and the color here, and I put the quantity there, and you got your basic pivot table. Now just reference a couple numbers here and we're going to go back to it later on to see if they match. All right, 191, not the totals, but like 196 for teal here and maybe Volkswagen 126 here. All right, so let's go back here and see if we can simulate that. What you need to do first is get your unique make items and then your unique colors. And to do that, we're going to put, let me put it over here. For the unique make, we need to use the unique function equals unique. Let's select that. And my array right here, Control Shift down arrow. And all we need to do is close parentheses, press enter, and we've got our unique list here, right? But it's not sorted in any order. And so what we can do is just use the sort function to surround that. We're going to say sort and close parentheses, and it'll sort it by default in the ascending order, which is alphabetical order. So now I've got my sorted order here. Double click to auto fit here. Now I need to have my colors over here. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to use sort. We're going to sort by order. Tab to open that. The array is going to be that unique. Click on that. And what's my array? Well, it's the colors here. Control Shift down arrow, and then close parentheses, return, and I needed two closing parentheses, that's fine. And unfortunately, it put it also in different rows. To fix that, to have it span across, and go back up here. To fix that, go back into cell G1. I need to transpose it so it goes across. So just type transpose. And close parentheses, press enter, and now we've got my unique list here. So how do I get my quantities all summed up here? Well, I need to use a sum ifs function. So it's going to sum ifs, open parentheses. What's my sum range? Well, it's my quantity here. Select that, Control Shift down arrow, Control delete, go back up to the top here where I was at. And what is going to be my criteria? Well, the criteria, there's going to be multiple criteria. First is my make and then my color. So my first criteria range is going to be my make. Select that, Control Shift down arrow, Control delete to go back up. And what is my criteria? Well, comma, that criteria is going to have to be this. And I need to put a little hash mark behind it. So what it's going to do is it's going to reference that spilled dynamic array range. So this is called an array reference. So it will recognize that, and once things get added or deleted, it will also reference this particular part here. That's the first criteria. Then second criteria is going to be the color. Select on this, Control Shift down arrow, Control delete to go back up here, and my second criteria is going to be my range here, right? This is where we had the reference, the array reference is going to point to that spilled array here, those unique values there. And close parentheses, press enter, and now you see that it has filled it out just like a pivot table. So this crosstab's been filled out. We had our 196 earlier, or 126 at Volkswagen at the bottom. We can see 196, 126. And if we wanted to do totals here, what we can do, select this, and then control, and then select this range. Alt equal, because that's going to actually sum up the rows here, and it'll sum up at the bottom of some of the columns. It kind of does that nicely and automatically, right? That looks kind of cool. And it simulates what we have here. And that's what we can do. So we can change things about the table to a certain extent. Let's say I wanted to change quantity. This purple, let's make it something really huge, like 10,000. You notice that changed it here. Chevrolet purple, right? But if I wanted to change that to something else, we'll change it to rainbow. You can see that it's got a spill area here. That means that there were some values in adjoining parts of the column or rows that made it difficult to spill the rest of it. If I took this out, let's say I took this out, took the totals out there, delete. Oops, let's try this again. Let's select, actually I can select this, press the control key and select that, and just click on clear all. You'll see that it added rainbow and it added 1000 because it spilled this content over additional columns. So that's one of the caveats about that. But you'll notice it's dynamic. Whereas if I had to do it here, I would have to right click and click refresh. And then we see that we have our rainbow here that got added. So that's one of the downfalls that we would have if we did it this way. But you only had to do three functions. One in this cell, one in this cell, and one in this cell using the unique functions. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's how we can simulate a pivot table without actually using the pivot table feature. Now I mentioned earlier that I was going to cover the unique function. Let's bring in some records here. I'm going to bring it down to, let's see, I'll bring it down to Toyota. Control C to copy. Let's open up a new sheet. Control V to paste. So what the unique function does is it takes out the unique, or maybe sometimes better description of it is it takes out the distinct values. So what I mean by that, well, let's use it. Type unique. What is my array? Let's just use here. We'll just use this as the array. And if I press enter, it's going to give you the values that you think are unique for it. And you'll notice that Chevrolet shows up more than once, GM shows up more than once, but Toyota only shows up once. So in essence, it's really giving you the distinct values. And if we have some other of these parameters here, let's say, for example, if we wanted to show truly the only unique values here, the ones that only show up really once, I would use that third argument there. So I press comma, comma, and then the item that shows up exactly once. And this is only going to give me, double click on that, this is only going to give me Toyota, right? So the other entry, the exact entry that says false, that's on by default. So another way to use this is if you wanted to get distinct values across columns, let's try that. Delete this and select my values here and click OK. Press enter, we'll see that it brought back the unique values for each column. You'll notice that Ford Red showed up twice, over here in row 10 and over here in row 14. And so it recognized that. Now, what about the other options there? We see we have this option by column, and that is on by default. So this by default is looking at the rows. So it's returning unique rows. But what if we select return unique columns and close parentheses? It's not going to give us anything because it's the format of the table is different. If I took this, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste transpose, then it would work. So if I looked at this and I said, oh, let's do it down here. If I typed in unique, and here I selected my array, well, let's include the headers here, that's fine, and selected that, comma, and then chose columns, not the default rows, press enter, it will give me the same as that one, just transposed. Actually, this is wrong since it gave me two of the Ford Reds. Let's delete that and take on the default, right? So it got rid of the Ford Red. It only shows up once now in the resulting column. So there's a little bit on the unique function, but in the end, it's like this particular function is pretty cool to be using it as a crosstab. So I thought that was kind of neat. If you didn't want to use the pivot table and have all those options available like the drop downs and whatnot, using the unique function actually is pretty handy to just get a nice crosstab of some data. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.